So I think let's go ahead and get started here. As I mentioned, my name is Justine, and I'm the marketing and community manager at We Work Remotely. And I'm pleased to announce our guest, Odalis, who is the head of customer success at Knack and the founder of Break Into Remote, which helps people land customer support jobs. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Odalis.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Honestly, I can probably spend hours talking about just remote work and customer support and all of this amazing stuff, but I will try to keep it to just 35 minutes so that all of you get the opportunity to ask whatever questions you have. So we're all here to talk about how to land a remote customer support job at an awesome remote company. Justine mentioned, oh, it's not working. Okay, there we go. Justine mentioned that I'm Odalis. I am the head of customer success at Knack, which is a fully remote company. We do some really cool stuff, building a platform for companies to build their own database apps, have a great team of incredible humans. I've been at Knack for over 4 years, and I've been hiring support folks for most of that time, and it's a big part of my job, which I truly enjoy. I'm also the creator of Break Into Remote, which is dedicated to helping customer support folks land jobs at awesome remote companies. So I'm sure that sounds familiar at this point. I mentioned I'm going to try to keep this to 30 minutes so we can get to the Q&A part. There is a lot of meaty stuff that I want to get into, and I know that I'm not going to be able to go in as much detail as I would like on all of these things. So I did want to mention there's kind of a companion web page that we're going to link to from the We Work Remotely webinar page so that you can get some more links and examples and templates and checklists. So if we don't get into enough detail here today, just know that there's going to be some more information there. And I'm also going to add things based on your questions during the Q&A portion. So let's just jump in with a question. How do you think companies perceive or view support teams? Definitely curious to see what all of you think. So some of the things I've seen before and I've heard before is that support teams are an unavoidable cost, or they're a cost center. Sometimes people feel like support is just an afterthought for a company, or maybe it's just not as important as other teams. So I want to dig into that a little bit more by talking about customers. I mean, the whole goal of support, of course. And I'm going to share some statistics with you about the difference between new and existing customers. So things like the fact that it actually costs a company more to acquire a new customer compared to just keeping a customer that they already have, that just keeping 5% more of your customers from leaving can increase a company's profit by 25%, repeat customers spend more. Lots of statistics, and you might be wondering, beyond my love of statistics, of course, why I'm sharing these. And it's because when companies see this type of information, they start thinking, they're like, okay, keeping our customers makes us more money. That makes sense. And then they connect the dots a little bit more. They think, okay, well, our support team is what helps to keep our customers. So where does that eventually lead them to? Support makes money. Support isn't a cost center. It's actually a part of the company that can generate real profit for the company. And so I'm sure that you all know at least a few companies where this seems already apparent for them. Like they already went above and beyond to help their customers because they understood how important to their success and to making money it was for them. And there are other companies, maybe some that you have even worked for, that just don't get this, that still don't appreciate support. I will say the good news is you don't have to work for those companies. There are so many great companies out there that do value support that you can work for. Instead, companies like HubSpot. So this quote by Ying Jen is from a report that she puts out every year, the state of customer success. And basically her advice for this year, and this came out after the pandemic, was to fully focus on service teams, take care of them, invest in them, empower them, not invest in sales, not invest in customers per se, invest in your service teams, because she understands that support teams actually matter a lot. And not just HubSpot, companies like Doist and Buffer, which are very popular remote companies because of their culture, they also understand how critical happy and successful customers are to their long-term success. And the fact that that can only happen with a fantastic support team. However, the point of all these statistics and quotes is not really to show you that companies value support. The truth is, some companies do, some companies don't. I would recommend highly avoid the ones that don't. The point of all of this is really to show you that your customer service and support skills are valuable. Without question or qualifier, the work you do absolutely matters. If there is only one thing, honestly, that you take away from this webinar, let it be this. Let this sink in for you. I'm sure that at some point in working with customers, you've had that moment that made you see, gave you maybe a glimpse of why the work that you do is important. The moment when that mom wrote into you through email asking you to help her to get access to her account again because she couldn't log in and she needed to make a payment because something about her son's baseball uniform and he was having his first game, and you were the one that helped her and made her be able to keep her promise to her son about getting him his uniform for his baseball game. Or the moment where I feel like anyone who's done customer service for even a week has seen this, you get the panicked call from the customer, I deleted something important, or I deleted all of the things. They're terrified and they don't want to lose their job. They think this might impact their job, and it is on you to help them, and to not just help them, but give them that peace of mind that they're not going to be losing their job today because you're going to help fix this for them. It is in those moments where you start to understand that the work that you do really makes a difference. Because at the end of the day, customers are people. You're helping people in some way make their day or that moment just a little bit better than it had been before they called you. Giving someone that kind of experience alone is highly valuable. When you add to it that it also helps a company be successful and adds to profit, then you get to the point where it's just a win for everyone. It's a win for the company, the customer, and for you to do the work that you do. So whether we're talking about the human connection level or we're talking on the side of logical and practicalness, the work that you do is absolutely valuable. If you can internalize that and agree with it, it's actually going to help you increase your chances of landing a great remote job. We're going to dig into that a little bit later. But for now, let's talk a bit more about what it even means to work or to find an awesome remote company. Because there's no one definition by any means, and it's different than just working for any remote company. So I want to talk about why it's even worth looking to work at this type of company. Now, this is my definition of what I would consider an awesome remote company. Of course, you can tweak it for your own needs, but first step, the company needs to be fully remote or remote first. That means that everyone is remote, or that the company works as if everyone is remote, even if some people may be working from an office. You'll see some companies say, not as much today as I maybe saw a few years ago, but you still see some companies say that they are quote unquote remote friendly. And this just means that most people don't work remotely, maybe just like one or two teams do. And those type of structures usually, not always, but usually lead to issues with people being left out of important discussions, important decisions, maybe not having as much access to important opportunities, you're basically ignored or siloed from the rest of the company. So it's not ideal for most people. With a fully remote or remote first company, you have more flexibility just built into the culture itself, and less of a chance of being cut out of an important discussion or decision, or not having a growth opportunity presented to you just because you didn't get enough face time with the right people. The second thing here is just the company needs to value customer support and its impact. You're applying for customer support jobs, so it's kind of a given that they need to care about the work that they're hiring you to do. Otherwise, that's not the type of company that I would consider awesome remote company anyways. Next up is that they just generally appreciate all of their employees, not just some teams or some individuals, but they care about building a great overall culture. They care about doing what's right. They care about being ethical. That ultimately is going to lead to a better experience for you at that company. And the last one is specific to you. You know, they have to offer what it is that you need and want, because not all remote companies, even the really great ones, are going to offer the same opportunities or the same pay or the same benefits or even have the same values. So you need to be clear about what it is that you want, what's important to you, so you can then look for the companies that meet those requirements, that have those things that you're looking for. Otherwise, you can end up in a situation where you're at a great company, but you're miserable, or you're immediately on the hunt for a new job because that important thing that you really wanted, like growth, for example, just isn't available to you when you need it. So with this set of criteria, we talked a little bit about culture, which is important for your job search, because the way that these companies structure, you know, their culture and how they value their team actually leads to something else that doesn't get talked about that much. And that's that awesome remote companies don't hire like everyone else. And I mentioned this is important for your job search because these companies, their goal is ultimately to find someone who's going to thrive at the company and be there long term. You know, they don't tend to have a lot of turnover. They're not looking for someone to just fill a spot really quick and then they'll worry about, you know, replacing them later, because they don't have that kind of turnover like other companies do, which usually means their hiring process is different. It has more steps. There's more discussion and communication. So if you're out there looking at some of just the Google articles that you'll find when you're searching on job searching, consider that the advice that a lot of those articles are geared to is just for how most companies hire. They're not necessarily geared toward how these type of remote companies hire. And I'll give you a quick example. During your job search, depending on how long you've been looking, you might have come across an article that talks about something like how to be a company's ATS, their applicant tracking system. Lots of companies use an ATS to cover the first part of their screening process. They'll scan the resumes and scan the cover letters to check for certain skills or experience. So the article will likely talk about things like keyword stuffing or adjusting the format to make sure that it properly gets scanned by the ATS, which is funny. So I've spoken to hiring managers at quite a few of these like really great remote companies, and what's interesting, and this includes Knack, not a single one uses an ATS. They all have real human eyes review every single application they receive, every single one. So keep that in mind when you're applying and when you're just looking at general job search advice online. That all said, since these companies hire differently, might lead you to believe that, well, okay, well, if they're doing things differently, maybe I need to be doing things differently too. So let's talk about what it actually means to apply in a way that is in line with the way that these companies are typically hiring. There's something critical that you need to show the thing that even experienced applicants don't always do, and it gravely decreases their chances, unfortunately, of getting the job. The number one thing that you need to make sure that you're showing during the entire hiring process is alignment. So what does this mean? Alignment is when what you want and can offer lines up with what a company wants and can offer. So, just the general idea is you have a skill set, you have a certain set of experience, you're looking for certain pay and benefits, and you're looking for a company that has the type of role that you're looking for and offers the same, types of pay and benefit that you're looking for. That's it. It just means that you're on the same page about what you both are looking for and want. Which, funny enough, I get this question from people looking for remote jobs, not just remote jobs, but any jobs all the time. I call it the ultimate job seeker question. And it is, how do I stand out? How do I compete against hundreds of other applicants? And the answer is honestly alignment. That's really it. That's what's usually missing from the majority of people who apply to a job. And here's why. I'll give you a quick example as far as like my typical hiring process. Other companies have slightly different. We start by posting the job. We'll review applications. It'll be me and a couple of other team members. We'll send some follow-up email questions. And right before we get to the next step, where it's a short interview hangout, we really start to ask ourselves, who do we think has the highest potential of being happy and successful on our team long term? Most people would think that we're immediately going to look to the person that has the most experience, but 9 times out of 10, it's really about how well we think that person could either fit or add something of value to our team, because we're not looking for people who are just carbon copies of the people we already have on our team. So, okay, you might be thinking, all right, I get that I need to show this alignment stuff and that this is what companies are looking for. But how do I even know? How do I even find out like what companies I could potentially have alignment with, that I can actually show that I'm a good fit for them? Which I think is an excellent question, and I would give you 2 gold stars if you ask me that. So let's look at some questions you can actually answer yourself to help figure out like how you could first figure out if there's any alignment with you and another company. So you might ask yourself things like, is this company in an industry or space that you're interested in? I get lots of questions about SaaS companies. People are really interested in SaaS, that maybe it's new to them or they just want to understand what it is, but also they're interested in breaking into a SaaS company. So is the company a SaaS company or a tech company? Will this role give you the chance to gain skills or experience that you're looking for? Maybe you want to move into leadership and has the potential for that. Do they have a mission that you believe in? Are they a nonprofit? Do they have the same values as you? Do they have just a product or service that you're very excited about? These are all things that if you can answer, you can then highlight in your applications and during interviews to show that there's alignment. Still, I get that just this set of questions doesn't necessarily make it completely easy and obvious how you're going to show alignment. So I'm sure you're thinking like, yes, how am I going to show this alignment in my application and during interviews? And another fabulous question for sure, another gold star. There are really just 2 things that you need to do for this. First is research. I mean, I can't tell you how many times people have applied for a job at our company, or that I've gotten messages from other hiring managers where someone has applied for the job and it was very obvious they didn't know what the company did. Maybe they didn't even read the full job description. It's not something that has to take a long time. It's fairly easy to answer most of these questions. What does the company do? What do they believe in? What are the values? What do employees say about them? It can honestly just take 5 to 10 minutes. After you've done it a few times, it gets easier and easier. And I can honestly say you can get it down to about 5 to 10 minutes. I do have a checklist and a video for this, so that'll go on that supplementary webpage that I mentioned early in the presentation, or that we're going to link to. But honestly, the important thing is just to know this is going to make a big difference in your ability to stand out when you're applying to companies. Okay, so research, that's the first thing. The other thing that you need to do to show alignment is customization. You need to customize your application and your interview responses. My guess is that you've heard some kind of similar advice at some point, something along the lines of personalize your resume or personalize your cover letter before sending it. What I've seen though is that personalization usually turns into someone having a standard cover letter where maybe what they do is just change the name of the company on the cover letter and then the name of the role that they're applying to, and they call it done. And that's just not enough. That's not personalizing. That's not customization. That is not going to get you the job. Now, the supplementary website page is going to have a lot more details, more specifics, because I know people tend to have a lot of questions about how to do this. But the general idea of what you're doing here is just you're taking those, what I call alignment nuggets, little pieces of information that you found, and you're going to include those in all of these different parts in the hiring process. For example, let's say that you're in the interview and you get asked a question, and it's pretty standard during support position interviews to ask something like if a customer situation you need to deal with. So maybe the question is, how would you help a customer with a technical issue that we know we can't fix today, but it's urgent for the customer? Like, how would you deal with that? The truth is that there's no one right answer to that question. There's lots of different factors you might want to take into consideration, lots of different approaches that you could take depending on what's going on. But now consider your answer, and then consider that you learned during your research that this company really values honesty and a sense of urgency. You can then take whatever answer you were going to say and then consider, well, how would I do this if I were at this company, if these were the values that I were working from? And I promise you, your approach is now going to change. You might start immediately, since one of the values is honesty, is just being clear with the customer and saying right away, like, we completely understand that this is critical for you. Unfortunately, we can't fix it today, but here's what we can do, and then just continue from there. So of course, you're not going to know everything about the company or how they work internally, but it truly impresses hiring managers and hiring teams when you can mention that you know what their values are, because most people don't even get that far in their research. And even better if you can tweak your answers to incorporate them. It basically equates to showing that you care, that you're serious about this job at this company, which is ultimately what we're all looking for when we're hiring candidates. All right, so we've covered a lot already. We're about halfway through. We're gonna cover some other things that you can do, especially when you consider maybe that you're using support as your way into remote work. So whether you have prior support experience, or maybe you do have some experience, either way, going through customer support is actually a great way to break into remote work. I'll give you a few reasons why. First is that at this point, I've been working remotely. It's been almost 8 years. I can tell you there were not as many support positions when I first started my remote journey, but nowadays I see hundreds of new remote support positions being posted every week. They might not all be from awesome remote companies, but there are more and more every week that are. The other thing is that while you do need certain skills and abilities to do this work well, you don't need a degree, you don't need to pay for a $20,000 boot camp to land a job in customer support. And the last thing is that because of the majority of companies actually need a customer support team, and a lot of them are now considering remote work for the future with everything going on, the pandemic, you have more of a chance than you did before to work in a variety of industries or specializations, which can definitely make an impact for you later on in your career. So lots of great opportunities in customer support within the world of remote work. So I'm going to talk about what you need to do if you don't have any prior support experience, what to do if you do have prior support experience, and how to work on highlighting some of the remote skills that hiring managers care about. So first up, what to do if you don't have prior support experience to break into remote work. First thing is show your excitement. Even if you don't have prior experience, you can apply to a junior support role and actually get it if you show that you're excited about the product or the service that you'd be supporting, basically that you're excited to represent it. And the reason is, if you think about what it means to apply to a support job, any support job, not just a remote one, what you are saying is that you want to spend 99% of your time talking about this product or service, teaching others about this product or service, helping people troubleshoot issues with this product or service. I mean, all you're going to do all day, every day while you're at work is talk about this product. So when you show that you're excited about it, it goes a really long way to show that the potential for you to be happy and to stick around long-term in this role is much higher, even when you start being compared to people who maybe have a little bit of support experience from before. So this is really important. The next thing is just show that you at least understand the basics of what the job entails. There's lots of great articles. I highly recommend anything by Help Scout about customer support work, whether you're new to it or you've been doing it for a while. Basically, this is understanding around, you're going to be working a queue, whether that's email or chat, or maybe you'll be doing phone calls, you'll be troubleshooting issues. You'll be working maybe with a dev team or a product team if you're working on a technical product. You might be writing articles or doing webinars or just training for new customers, creating documentation. You don't have to have experience with all of those things, and you might not if you haven't done support work before, but even being able to talk about understanding that that's going to be a part of your day-to-day, and again, being excited about it, learning that stuff, will go a long way during the hiring process. The last thing here, and this is specific to people who are interested in maybe moving to a SaaS company or working on a more technical product, is that if you haven't done support for a technical product before, the important thing that you have to do is show that you have technical aptitude. And what that really means is just that you have the potential for learning something technical. That's all it means. But the question I usually get here is, well, how do I show that I have technical aptitude? Which is a great question. And this is what I recommend, and honestly, how other people have framed it that have led to them joining our team, even if they didn't have support experience in the past. So have you ever taught yourself Photoshop or a video editor, WordPress, Squarespace, maybe some HTML, CSS? If you've taught yourself any of those types of products, and it's way more than just that small list, then the aptitude is there. You've already taught yourself a technical product. So the potential for you being able to do that for someone else is there. Also consider, maybe you haven't provided customers with support for these type of tools, but have you ever helped out other users of this tool in like a forum, or maybe just at a company where your company was releasing some new kind of project management software or something like that, and you were the one tasked with getting all of your colleagues up to speed on it? All of that counts as experience and as technical aptitude. So talk about that, mention it in your applications, talk about it during your interviews. It absolutely counts, even if you don't have prior support experience. Of course, I had to add in a little parenthetical comment at the bottom, like you still need to do your research, you still need to show alignment. This is on top or in addition to those things, but it's going to be a lot easier to do these things if you have done some research and can show how excited you are about the specific things you've learned about that company. So up next, let's talk about what you're going to do if you do have prior support experience and you're competing against other people with prior support experience. Yes, it's not a typo. I absolutely put show your excitement there again. It's still very important for you. It's different though, and I'm going to give some examples as to why it's different but still important. I've seen applications and interviewed candidates that were just clearly not interested in support work anymore. Part of the time it's just that they're burnt out, which is completely understandable. Support work can definitely do that. Or they were just at that point in their careers where they were ready to move into something different. And that's perfectly okay. But if it comes out while you're, during the hiring process, and I promise you it comes out every single time, it's not something that's easy to hide, this just isn't the right job for you. This is, from my perspective, it's way too risky to hire someone like that, because the chances are that they might leave sooner than I would like them to, no matter how much experience they have. So show that you're excited about supporting this product. Show that you're excited about being, teaching and supporting day after day. The next thing kind of ties into this, and it's be clear that you enjoy just working with customers, that it's something that this type of work brings you joy, that you get those little dopamine hits, is what I call them, that come from solving a tricky problem or turning an angry customer into an ecstatic one. This is something I've actually heard from a lot of other hiring managers. I've seen it myself, but mostly something I've heard from them, where they're just not seeing it in their candidates. They don't get the sense, or it's not being explicitly said or written, that this is just work that brings you joy. They want to see that. The last thing is, this is a newer one. I gotta say, I did career coaching about 5 years ago, and this never really came up, but now I've had multiple hiring managers bring it up to my attention, so I'm sharing it here with you. Don't make it seem like you know everything. Don't make it seem like just because you've done support work in the past that you know everything about how to do support work at this company in this role. What they recommend instead is just show that you're confident in the fundamentals of providing support. Like you understand why empathy is important. You understand why patience is important. You understand why it's important to be able to break things down into easier to understand chunks. Like, these are skills that is going to serve you in all support work, but don't make it seem like you just know everything about how you would handle every situation, because you haven't done support at this company before. And it absolutely is different from company to company, sometimes in very important ways. So remote skills, this is what most articles about landing a remote job focus on. And it's fine. It's absolutely, it's maybe not important, it's a necessary part, but it's not as important as some people make it seem, or all of the things that I've covered before. But there are things that you want to make sure that you highlight. These are really the three skill areas, I will call them, the ones that come up the most often. I just recently did a project where I talked to hiring managers or a lot of these awesome remote companies, and these are the skills that just kept coming up over and over and over again. The first one, self-management, self-motivation. Oftentimes people are not sure how to show this, which is fair. How do you prove to someone that you're good at managing yourself? So I have some questions to kind of help you figure out how you can talk about this. Are you comfortable asking questions when you don't know something? Do you know how to prioritize your work? Do you know how to find answers on your own? In other words, though you have a team and you may have a team lead or a manager, can you independently ensure that you get all of your work done to the standard of quality that that team requires once you're done with, your initial onboarding and training? If the answer is yes, then congratulations, you're good at self-management. Those are the type of things that you can talk about to show that when you need help, you're not afraid to ask for it, but for the most part, you're resourceful, you can figure out how to find answers to things, and that you know how to prioritize the work that you need to do, and you'll just get it done. The second thing is being a great communicator, especially in writing. People often miss the fact that being on a remote support team, writing becomes doubly important for you, because not only are you going to be writing to your team in Slack all day, you're also going to be writing to customers through emails or chats. And it's really important that you can clearly and concisely communicate your thoughts and ideas, and that you're able to teach people through writing. Even if it's a very phone heavy position, you're still going to be writing to your team all day. So as long as you can clearly share what you're trying to say without someone having to read through the message more than once, then you're communicating very well. And you can consider that one of your skills. The last thing here is just enjoys learning, is adaptable. This is partly tied to people just liking to hire people that like to learn and like to grow. But for support, it actually has a whole separate meaning of, with support, you're constantly learning. You know, if you're supporting a product is going to get new features all the time. If you're supporting a service, maybe new services get added or old services change, and you have to be able to adapt and learn and be able to help customers with that, you know, with those changes, or help them find value with this new feature that was released. On top of that, you're constantly up-leveling your skills in things like troubleshooting, helping customers get more value out of your product or service, providing proactive versus reactive support, and the list goes on. So it's an important skill, not just because hiring managers want to see it when you're applying for remote support jobs, but it's going to serve you well to just enjoy the work that you're doing and be successful in that role. So we've covered at this point a lot of things about what you can do to stand out, showing alignment. You're going to do your research. You're going to customize resumes and cover letters and your interview responses, some things to do depending on whether you have support experience or not, and how to show remote skills. Now I want to talk about one mistake that I feel you need to avoid at all costs so that you don't ruin your own chances of landing a remote job. This mistake is one that at one point, more than 50% of the applicants, at least at Knack, were making. It's a mistake that is so prevalent, other companies are writing about it just to get people to stop the madness, to stop doing this. The mistake is making it seem like the only reason you want the job is because it's remote. Whatever you do, don't do this. This is almost an immediate rejection in most cases. When there's this common question that a lot of remote companies use, especially really good ones, on their application, that'll ask something very basic like, why are you interested in the role? Or why do you think this is a good fit for you? Do not answer that it's because it's remote and then say nothing else, because it happens all the time and it is not a good look. It is not going to get you the job. So what can you do instead? You can mention that you like the idea that, or you like that the job is remote. Like, remote working is awesome. So it doesn't, like, it's not so bad to just say that it's something that you're interested in, but the company isn't hiring you to work remotely. They're hiring you to do customer support. So make sure that you're talking about the other things that you like about the role and the company, whether that's benefits or those alignment nuggets that you found, their mission, their product, whatever it is. Make sure that you also show the excitement about those other things and not just that the position is remote. I do have a great article that you can read about this mistake and 7 other mistakes that companies like Doist, Buffer, and some other great ones wrote together, and that'll be linked to from the supplemental webpage as well. And it'll help give you some more examples of other companies that are experiencing this and why it drives them crazy as well. So now we're at the end of the presentation. I just have one more quick thing that I want to share. And I want to share this because most people ask me about it and feel incredibly awkward about it. But it's a very important thing when you're considering any job, as it should be. And that's money, or more specifically, salary. I get lots of questions about what's an expected salary or hourly rate for remote support jobs. First, I want to say that there are many, many companies that, I'm sorry, somebody say something. Okay, cool. So there are many companies that pay great salaries for support work. You don't have to automatically go for the jobs that pay hourly or that don't have any benefits. Like, that's just not right. salary is dependent on several things, including what type of support role you have, what type of business or industry the company is in. For example, SaaS companies, tech companies tend to pay more. Your experience, your skill set, your location plays a role as well, and generally how much the company values support. So all of those things are going to impact how much salary you might be able to get paid for a job. But just know that your options aren't only take a low paying hourly job that has no benefits. Like, you don't have to go that route. This is not just my opinion or stance on pay. This is, companies are actually paying great salaries for support work. So I want to just cover real quickly, like, this is the average that salary that customer support folks make, this 64,607, based on support driven salary survey from 2018. Now this is, again, this is the average. About 719 support people filled this out. Most of them, like 90-something% of them, were full-time. The majority were also in North America, so you do need to adjust if you're in different countries. But I've seen even some European countries having very comparable when you consider the currency exchange. So know that, like, a lot of entry-level jobs I've seen mostly around 40 to 45, maybe 50K. Sometimes they go a little bit higher, but that's more rare. If you've been doing customer support for about 3 years, that's where you start hitting about the 60K mark. Beyond that, it really is dependent, basically above the 65%. It's usually dependent on just, are you moving into more leadership roles? Are you doing a more difficult customer support role? Those type of things will definitely give you the opportunity to earn even more. But I did just want to quickly cover it because I get questions and I feel like it's important to talk about this. It doesn't need to be awkward. So that's it. That's everything. That I know there was a lot, and I'm sorry, I probably went way over the time that I meant to. And I do want to answer whatever questions you have. So let's just get to that.
Wow, thank you, Odalis. That was such a great presentation, just so rich and full of information. If it's cool with you, let's get to some of these questions. There's some really good ones here.
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. So I like this. This is kind of a general tool asks, what is customer success? You know, you kind of see different titles, but I think they all kind of have to do with, obviously, customer service, customer support. So in your experience, what is that, and where did that title kind of come from?
Yeah, this is a great question. And I'll be honest, it is confusing. So if you've ever tried to look up the definition, that might be why you're asking me right now. So customer success actually started when SaaS companies started realizing that support for them had to be a little bit different. The main thing for anyone who's not familiar with SaaS companies, it's software as a service, is that they're trying to convince their customers to pay them either on a monthly or annual basis. And the monthly is really where this becomes critical. So their support teams need to constantly be trying to fix problems to make sure that this person doesn't decide to leave to another company. And so in order to show the difference between like a regular, like not regular, but a more generalized customer service or customer support position, SaaS companies started to use this customer success title. That said, other companies love the title and they think, yay, I want to focus on the success of my customers. So they've now used it to both describe support positions and customer success positions. So you really need to read a job description when you see something like customer success in the title, because it does not mean the same thing at all companies. Even now within different SaaS companies, it does not mean the same thing. So my advice is just really read the job description carefully and know that sometimes customer success, especially in the SaaS world, is almost like an account management type role. Like, you are still doing some support work, but a lot of it is you have a book of customers that you need to reach out to and do stuff with, like renewals. Like, it's a little more sales related than it is support related at some companies.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Atul also sorry, asks a few other couple of questions that I think you'll likely answer in your link there, right? Kind of getting a job related.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yeah. So Okay, so yeah, what should I write in my resume or cover letter while applying? Yes, I do get into a lot more detail about the language that you use. There's examples. I have this whole list of just things that people forget they do in customer support. Like if you're really struggling to see all of the value or why someone would pay you more, you're trying to like negotiate for more money. I have a whole list of things. It's like a list of 50 something items that you can add to your resumes, to your cover letters, talk about during interviews that shows how much value that you bring and really will help you stand out from other applicants.
Awesome. Okay, so let's move on here. Paula asked another great question here. Startup companies or really new ones don't have much information around in order to get really good research. So what do you do in those cases?
Yeah, that's a great question, Paula. So my advice there, and there is some of this covered in that supplemental webpage, is talk to the people at that company. There are definitely companies where maybe it's like 4 people and you might be like the first support person or only the second support person hired. That is, I mean, you're going to be working with these 4 people. You're going to know them better probably than anyone else you've ever known because you're going to spend so much time with them. Just reach out to them. And there are very non-awkward ways to do that, ways that don't feel like networking, that you can reach out to them and connect, that will make it feel like, okay, I'm just talking to someone, I'm just trying to get to know them. And a lot of times, I will say, the advantage of kind of reaching out to these smaller companies is, first of all, they don't get a lot of people applying. Like they do get far less applicants than some of the better known companies. So they have a little bit more bandwidth to talk to applicants, and they're kind of excited to get the chance to talk to people who are excited about their company. So when I mentioned in my presentation, like show your excitement, show that you're excited about what they're doing, definitely approach the conversation from that perspective. Like let them know like what attracted you to their company, to this role, and just go from there with your conversation. But I also have some other suggestions about what to talk about, because some people just don't even know what to do or what to ask. I've got suggestions on that as well on the other webpage. So yeah, can help with that.
And we'll be sending out that link when we send out the recording. So you'll receive that link then. Awesome. Okay, so great question here from Danelle. I'm a senior RN with a MS in counseling, forced into living on disability with extreme physical injuries. I live in Montana. Are there any areas of support service that would fit my skill set? I'm computer literate, but our internet here is not high speed. Is that necessary? Thanks.
Well, I'm glad that something led you to remote work, because it's definitely an unfortunate situation that you find yourself in, Danelle, but that is one of the greatest benefits of being able to work remotely. The fact that your location, we actually have someone who lives in Montana on our team, like it doesn't have to impact your ability to continue to work and provide for yourself and for your family. With your MS in counseling, man, there are a lot more, I will say, than I maybe saw even like 5-10 years ago. A lot more companies trying to do work around just generally providing people access to counseling, like during this pandemic. It definitely has blown up. But even before this, lots of people couldn't afford to like go to therapy and, you know, a licensed therapist or anything like that. People are just looking for someone to listen to them, someone to talk to them. And there's different types of counseling that have become popular. Everything from like addiction counseling all the way to counseling of just like, my day sucks, what do I do? So there are more companies that are basically trying to make that available through apps, for example. BetterHelp is a really good example of that. So if you were to work on a support team there, and I don't know like how support would really work on a company like that, you would definitely have an advantage because your background is in the product of the customers that they're serving. But there are other healthcare companies as well that you could maybe look into. But I'd say if your degree is in counseling and it's something that you enjoy doing, why not just look for counseling jobs as well? There might not be as many fully remote companies offering counseling services, but maybe more as a like freelancer, there might be opportunities for you there to still make pretty good money, because I know hourly, some of them have pretty high rates, while being in Montana and maybe not having the best internet connection, just because a lot of this, at least with some of these newer apps, it's all through messaging anyway. So if it takes 30 seconds for the message to go through, that's not going to make a difference to anyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that's great. This is a great question too. How can you vet out whether someone is burnt out if they don't explicitly say that on customer support? Any specific traits or years or experience?
Yeah, so it's not usually just based on years and experience. I mean, honestly, I've met people who were burnt out from support after like 6 months, just because maybe they were the only support person at a company that was getting hundreds, if not thousands of requests in a single month. So that's not usually the indicator. When we're going through the hiring process, and this is part of what I meant as far as, you know, certain remote companies having more steps, and you're talking to people a lot more than maybe you would with a typical hiring process, you get the chance to really know people. Like, for example, at Knack, okay, so we do the application, we've got some follow-up questions through email, then you do a short hangout with me first, then you're going to do a group hangout with other members of the support team, so you can start getting some different perspectives and start getting to know some other people. Then we do a paid trial where you actually spend 2 weeks working with our team and doing the work. And during that time, I guarantee you at some point in the process, we can figure out like people who are just not into it anymore. They're just tired of it. And like I said, that's okay. Burnout is something we talk about early and often at our company, because pretending like it doesn't exist in a support role is ridiculous. It's going to happen. You know, there's lots of things you can do to get around it or to deal with it when it does happen. It's a normal thing. For us, the question then becomes, is it a temporary thing? Are you just burnt out right now? And maybe our company is going to do a better job of helping you manage it so that it's not a problem long term? Or is it just that you're at the point where you just don't want to look at another customer complaining about something and you would be much happier doing something else? And I'll be honest, like there have been times where we've identified that, and I usually just talk to the person and help refer them to a different job that might be a better fit, because the truth is customer support is fantastic for moving into other areas of a company, especially when you're working so closely with other teams. I can tell you, for example, on our team, we've had people go into product, we've had people go into growth and content, we've had people go into security teams, we've got someone considering like a QA position. I mean, like there is no limit, just because you are so, you know, the product so well, you know people so well being in customer support, that you can take a lot of what you've learned and apply it in other positions for sure. Hopefully
Awesome.
that answered your question.
Yeah, again, so rich with details. We did a webinar with Leah from Help Scout last month or a couple months ago. And one of the things that she did mention, it was on what questions are like, it was on remote interviews. And one thing that she did bring up was, is there a burnout culture at that remote company? You know, a question you could ask is,
Yeah.
When's the last time you took a vacation?
Yes.
Or how often do people go on vacation? So yeah.
It's a great question. Absolutely. Yeah. People always seem shocked when I tell them that on our team, since we have unlimited PTO and our support team is the biggest team at Knack, there's almost always someone out of the office on our team. Like we rarely have all 14 of us in at the same time, like for a whole week, just because we're very open about just, you need the time off. Like we all get it, especially our product being more complex and like your brain is just constantly like working to the point that people dream about our product who start on our team. Yeah, it's funny. It's almost like a rite of passage. I think it's great to ask about that. If they are even a little bit annoyed that you ask, like I would not consider that company, because it means that they're trying to just sweep those problems under the rug instead of just addressing it. Like it's not a bad thing. It's just something that happens. It shouldn't be a big deal.
Exactly. Also, speaking of Help Scout, you mentioned their blog in terms of resources related to support. So do you have any other suggestions for articles or books in order to succeed in support fields is another question here.
Yes. I know you guys can't see it. I have all these books back here. I have a bunch of books on support, but the number one thing that I will recommend, I honestly don't even recommend any other support books, is the Customer Support Handbook. And it's written by the founder of Co-Support, Sarah Hatter, and it's fantastic. It covers almost every aspect that is a part of doing a support role, but it does it from a place of empathy, a place of service, a place of like really focusing on the customer and how to best serve them. So it takes away all of the like icky parts of support that you might have experienced working at like a call center or a company that didn't care about support. So it's fantastic. I would highly recommend it. I can definitely link to that as well, just as a reminder. Other blogs, like I love Help Scout. There's so many articles there that if you even just start there, you'll probably be there for a month just reading things, but they're fantastic. Groove, which is another support product, they also have a fantastic blog, lots of great resources. And I mentioned HubSpot. They're actually a marketing company. I want to say they do so much now that it's hard to even say like they're just one thing, but they actually have lots of great articles on customer support. So they would be the other one that I would recommend.
Sorry, I was just finishing up typing in the chat there. Awesome. Okay, so just looking at time. Are you okay to go over a couple of minutes here? Because we have some really good questions here. Okay. So Dino asks, first of all, thank you. The presentation was very insightful. I have 2 questions for you. So number 1, I noticed that a lot of companies searching for remote customer support talents are searching for English native speakers. What would some of your tips for non-native English speakers to get a remote customer support or success job?
That's a good question. I will say thank you, technology, because nowadays, look, I've had one person who made it all the way to the trial part of our hiring process, who I had to choose not to make an offer to. And it's really rare that people get to the trial phase and we don't make them an offer. And it was because of his writing skills, not even his like English skills. And what was bothersome about it, besides the fact that we gave him this feedback multiple times, was that there are products that can fix this for you. I'm personally a fan of Grammarly. You don't even have to use the paid version, just the free version. Write what you're trying to write and then just have Grammarly like spell and grammar check it for you. It might not be perfect every time, but it is going to get you so close to the point that as long as the other person reading, you know, a customer reading this can understand what you're saying, then you're going to be fine. The other thing I would point out is lots of companies serve customers worldwide. Like we have customers worldwide. We don't necessarily have support people everywhere in the world, but we get people where English is their second language. And it's always great, honestly, if you know a second language. In my case, like Spanish is my native language also with English. And I can not just only work with other Spanish speaking customers, but I can help other customers where English is their second language, because I still remember what that was like trying to figure out how to say certain things and how I would phrase things when I was first learning English. So there are opportunities. So maybe some things to look for is just, you know, is it mostly email and chat support? Like, are you writing? Maybe chat is too fast. Maybe you want to use or stick with companies that are more email related. So you have the chance to use a tool like Grammarly to spell check your stuff and grammar check your what you're writing. The other thing is, are they a multinational company? Because they might have lots of customers where English is their second language. And so you actually have an advantage even if you don't speak the language that those customers speak. So that's what I would recommend on focusing on.
Totally. I use Grammarly too. It's such an awesome
See someone
tool.
else commenting that Grammarly is awesome. Yes. Dino. It's great.
Yeah. So the question here, or second question here, sorry, is what are some good resources to get remote customer support success skills? I'm guessing
Another
that might
really
be
great question. Thank you, all of you. These have all been such like great questions. So there are a lot of skills that are going to make you successful in customer support. First of all, like customer service in general, just working with customers, working with people. There are lots of ways for you to get those skills. Some of them might involve some kind of hourly job somewhere to get that experience, but it's well worth it. And honestly, when I was talking about people who needed to show technical aptitude, for example, helping people on forums, that counts as a form of customer support. So that you can do for free and will definitely give you the opportunity to fine tune the way that you teach, the way that you can express yourself through writing, and just even things like making sure you understand what the person is asking or the problem that they're having, making sure that you're addressing everything that they're asking about and that you're communicating your response in a way that they can understand the first time without having to have a bunch of follow-up questions. So there you go, free resource for learning that aspect of it. The other thing that I would say is, it doesn't matter whether it's technical or not. Teach yourself something that challenges you, that forces you to like really think about all of the trial and error that happens for a typical person when they're learning something new. Because the other side, especially customer support that's tied more to a product, like you're going to be digging into issues all day. You're going to be trying to figure out how this person even got to the state that they're in so much that if you go and you learn something new and you break things often and you yourself have to figure out how to get yourself out of it, you're going to learn that skill even if you're not doing it for other people. But then you can kind of back that up with supporting people on forums as well.
I love that. Because that's like good stuff, like you're saying, to show people when you're in interviews and like,
exactly
what I do.
People who worry they don't have experience, there's so many ways to get that experience. There really is. Like that's kind of what I also love about customer support. I'll give you a tip for everyone who is still here that I don't often share, but it's honestly one of those things that will set you 1,000% apart from anyone else applying to a job. Use the product, if it's a product. Sometimes you can use the service of the company that you're applying to. Even if all you do is like just sign up for a trial and like click around, being able to say like, hey, I actually tried it. Like, I'm excited about this because I know to a certain extent what it does. Look at their forum, see what customers are asking, see what they're saying, because you can then talk about that stuff when you're on your interview. And it is mind blowing to hiring managers when they know that like you took the time to look at their knowledge base or you took the time to actually try the product, because all of that leads them to think like, this person is serious. They really want this job because no one else does that. So if you really want the job, like if it's your dream company and you're trying to figure out how to stand out, do that. Try the product or service.
Yes, 100% agreed. This is a good question about salary. Many companies don't usually share salaries in the job posting or during the interview. Salaries are a hot topic
Yes.
in the remote world, especially. So if they ask you in the interview, is it recommended to give a number?
I do think that there's so much that like depends on how you like tackle it. For example, if you like know that there is a specific number that you want because that's the amount that you need to make to take care of your family, my thinking is I'm going to say that up front because otherwise you're going to waste your time and their time. Man, I was talking to someone who had worked for like a huge tech company. I mean, one of those that like everybody knows the name of and wishes that they would work for. She decided to move on to a new support role, was getting interviews left and right. And she knew it was just because that company's name was on her resume. She gets all the way to the end of a hiring process and they offer her like $16 an hour to do support, which just blew her mind because her experience was actually like in a leadership position in support. And her response to them was basically, I can make more going to the Dairy Queen down the street because I can become a manager in less than a year and make $16 instead of $15 an hour, which is crazy. So this problem of salary not being shared up front is absolutely infuriating. I completely understand. Our company, that's actually one of the first questions that we ask, like, what's your range? You don't have to give us a specific number if you want room to like negotiate later, but if our ranges don't overlap at all, then it's not worth anybody's time to continue forward in this process. So yeah, if you need to make a certain amount, like you have a minimum number you absolutely have to make, usually I recommend like just say it, because otherwise you might end up making less. I mean, unless you're willing to wait to get to potentially that number someday, but if you really need that money right now, like just be upfront. The other thing is, you know, I shared that information about salary and like the averages and typically like starting out versus like having more experience. I put this on the webpage. So angel.co, if you're ever in there, like they're very like tech startup focused. Most companies, I'd say like 8 out of 10 of them actually post their salary ranges when they post their jobs. So you can actually see how much you can make in that role. So that's one resource. I also even added a screenshot from a WeWork remotely job post by Hotjar. They put their salary range right at the bottom of their job post. So if you're worried about like negotiation and like lowballing yourself or going too high, like you could definitely take that route of looking at the companies that actually do post their salaries first. Otherwise, give a range. That's usually what I say. Like if all else fails and they're being very pushy about it and it seems like you can't move forward in the process without sharing it, give them a range. It doesn't have to be like a $50,000 range, but like usually 10 to 15,000 is fine. At the end of the day, like if they're really not going to be paying you what you're worth, like it just doesn't feel worth it to continue with them anyways. It does help if that conversation happens sooner or later, but I understand that sometimes that's just not possible, especially when they haven't done a great job up front of letting you know what you'd actually be doing in that role.
Totally. And I'm just looking at the time here. So are you okay with answering one last question? It's
one last question.
One last question. Okay, it's actually a follow-up to salary. Is negotiation, I think this is how I'm answering or understanding it properly, but is negotiating your salary a turnoff?
I don't think so. I think this is very specific to whoever the hiring manager is. I can't say that it's even like a company cultural thing. Some companies have created systems where they've basically almost removed negotiation from being on the hiring manager, meaning they've already set everything up on their level, like at the HR level. And it's like, here's what you can say, hiring manager person. And so for them, it's not that big of a deal because they've almost been given the answer to the test. For me personally, like, I feel like if you value your work that you're doing, I like people who negotiate their salary, if I'm being honest, especially if you feel like the offer is not fair for some reason. Like, I never want anyone to feel like I'm not paying them what they're worth, what they deserve. But yeah, all I can say is that it seems very person to person. Like, I know some people who don't like it, but I will say none of the hiring managers that I know at awesome remote companies hate it when someone negotiates. Some of them might have salary stuff in place where negotiation doesn't even come up. But other than that, like none of them are offended or upset when people try to negotiate with them.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think for the most part, transparency and being direct is kind of a common trait of a remote company. You kind of have to be that way to work.
Yeah, it's a culture thing for sure that lots of companies adopt. Yeah.
100%. All right, so I think we'll cap it here, but I just want to say thank you again for your time and sharing your expertise. I hope everybody found this beneficial and helpful, and thank you for joining and asking your great questions. I'll be sending the recording by tomorrow, so stay tuned for that, along with the link that Odalis mentioned. Yeah, any last words there?
No, just thank you all. I love these questions. They were great. One of the things that I was going to do, any questions that didn't get answered, because it sucks to go to a webinar and then not get your question answered. I'm actually going to grab all of them, even the ones that I did answer, and I'm actually going to add them into that web page. So I have a whole section separated for it. I'll go through and recap the answers that I gave here, and then just add answers to the questions that didn't get answered. So everyone's awesome. Everyone's questions is going to get answered, I promise.
That's great. That's great. Awesome. Well, everyone, have a great rest of your day, and we'll be in touch soon. Thank you.